Hare Krishna, Pranam dear devotees. Thank you so much for joining. So let's start with prayers. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिधि नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे Hare Krishna. Dhanvat pranams. Thank you for joining. Welcome everyone. We'll continue reading the second chapter of the Nectar of Devotion. And I think Mataji had covered till this paragraph yesterday. So we'll continue reading from this point on. So would someone like to read?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Every living entity under the spell of the material energy is held to be in an abnormal condition of madness. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, generally the conditional soul is mad because he is always engaged in activities that are the causes of the bondage and suffering. The spirit soul is in his original condition is joyful, blissful, eternal, and full of knowledge. Only by his implication in material activities has he become miserable, temporary, and full of ignorance. This is due to vikarma. Vikarma means action which should not be done. Therefore, we must practice sadhana bhakti, which means to offer mangalarti, deity worship in the morning, to refrain from certain material activities, to offer obeisances to the spiritual master, and to follow many other rules and regulations that will be discussed here one after another. These practices will help one become cured of madness, as a man's mental disease is cured by direction of psychiatrist. So this sadhana bhakti cures the conditioned soul of his madness under the spell of Maya, material illusion. Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranams.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So would someone else like to continue? Yeah, Shobha Mataji. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Mataji, Hari Bol.
Mataji, there's two small paragraphs, so you can read these two paragraphs.
Okay, Mataji. From Narada Muni, right?
Yes, Mataji.
Narada Muni mentions this sadhana bhakti in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 1st chapter, verse 32. He says there to King Yudhishthira, my dear king, one has to fix his mind on Krishna by any means. That is called Krishna consciousness. It is the duty of the Acharya, the spiritual master, to find the way and means for his disciple to fix his mind on Krishna. That is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us an authorized program for this purpose, centered around the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. This chanting has so much power that it immediately attaches one to Krishna. That is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. Somehow or other, one has to fix his mind on Krishna. The great Saint Ambarisha Maharaja, although a responsible king, fixed his mind on Krishna, and similarly, anyone who tries to fix his mind in this way will very rapidly make progress in successfully reviving his original Krishna consciousness. Haribol, thank you, Mataji.
Thank
Dandavad.
you, Mataji. Thank you. Yeah, Sudha Mataji, you can read the next para.
Hare Krishna Mataji, pranams.
Hare Krishna. Pranam, Mataji.
Now, this sadhana bhakti or practice of devotional service may also be divided into two parts. The first part is called service according to regulative principles. One has to follow these different regulative principles by the order of the spiritual master or the strength of authoritative scriptures, and there can be no question of refusal. That is called Vaidehi or regulated. One has to do it without argument. Another part of sadhana bhakti is called Raganuga. Raganuga refers to the point at which, by following the regulative principles, one becomes a little more attached to Krishna and executes devotional service out of natural love. For example, a person engaged in devotional service may be ordered to rise early in the morning and offer arti, which is a form of deity worship. In the beginning, by the order of his spiritual master, one rises early in the morning and offers arati, but then he develops real attachment. When he gets this attachment, he automatically tries to decorate the deity and prepare different kinds of dresses and things of different plans to execute his devotional service nicely. Although it is within the category of practice, this offering of loving service is called spontaneous. So, the practice of devotional service, sadhana bhakti, can be divided into two parts, namely regulative and spontaneous. Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So now, because the topic of sadhana bhakti has started, so let's read these two paragraphs also, and then we'll discuss. Rajeshwari Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat
Krishna.
Pranam.
Pranam Mataji.
Rupa Goswami defines the first part of devotional practice or Vedanti Bhakti as follows. When there is no... Yes, Mataji?
It's Vedi Bhakti, Mataji. Vedi Bhakti.
Thank you, Mataji. Vedi Bhakti as follows. When there is no attachment or no spontaneous loving service to the Lord, and one is engaged in service of the Lord simply out of obedience to the order of the spiritual master or in pressures of the scriptures, such obligatory service is called Vedantiri Bhakti. These principles of Vedantiri Bhakti are also described in Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, the first chapter, verse 5, where Sukadev Goswami instructed the dying Maharaj Parikshit as to his course of action. Maharaj Parikshit met Sukadev Goswami just a week before his death, and the king was perplexed as to what should be done before he was to pass on. Many other sages also arrived there, but no one could give him the proper direction. Sukadev Goswami, however, gave this direction to him as follows. My dear king, if you want to be fearless in meeting your death next week, for actually everyone is aware at the point of the death, then you must immediately begin to process the hearing and chanting and remembering God. If one can chant and hear the Hare Krishna and always remember Lord Krishna, then he is sure to become fearless of death, which may come to any moment. Hare Krishna
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. So now let's discuss the part that we read and a little bit of what was discussed earlier also, because this is all linked. So this whole verse till this point, let's try and discuss. Now, this particular chapter, as you can see, it's the title itself is the first stages of devotion. So heart devotion starts, what are the symptoms, all that we are going to discuss. Okay, now in the in Bhakti Rathamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, three categories of devotional service have been mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami. So Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu is talking about three categories of devotional service. So firstly, there is devotional service in practice, devotional service in ecstasy, and devotional service in pure love of Godhead. So practice, ecstasy, and pure love of Godhead. So it is also called as bhakti, bhav, and prema. So these are the sadhana, bhav, or prema. This is how it is described. So there is sadhana bhakti, there is bhav bhakti, and there is prema bhakti. So those are the three categories. Now we are firstly talking about this first stage where there is devotional service in practice. Now, generally, it is understood that in the category of devotional service in practice, there are two different categories. There is sadhana bhakti, Vedi sadhana bhakti, and then there is raganuga bhakti. Okay, both of them are coming in the first category itself, devotional service in practice. So the terminology when we are talking about our Sanskrit terms and then English terms, it's important for us to understand which term is standing for which. So when we are saying sadhana bhakti, we mean devotional service in practice, and then devotional service in ecstasy is bhav bhakti, and devotional service in pure love of Godhead, that is prem bhakti. So bhav and prem, right now we are not talking about that. We are still talking about the first stage, that is devotional service in practice. Now, all these in detail, they'll be discussed throughout this book. But first of all, let's talk about devotional service in practice. Okay. This is the first stage of devotion. And Srila Prabhupada says that in this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami suggests that the person eligible for Krishna consciousness or devotional service can be classified by his particular taste. Now, when we are talking about all these different stages, how do we know? Can we understand which devotee is in the first stage, which devotee is still a Vaidhi Bhakta, which devotee is a Raganuga Bhakta, who has attained Bhav, who has attained Prema? Can we just look at them from their dress or from their face? Can we make it out? No, it is according to the taste they have for Krishna consciousness. That is what reflects in their behavior, and then that is how we can know. Right? Because there are some devotees for which other senior devotees say that, oh, they have already attained bhav. Right? How do they know? Because they are able to understand that their level of taste in Krishna consciousness, their level of attraction to Krishna consciousness, that has reached that stage. Okay. So, what is our taste in bhakti? That really tells us at what stage we are. And what is this taste? When I say that, our taste reflects where we are, the taste is nothing but our attraction to Krishna. The greater our attraction to Krishna, the more advanced that devotee is. And in fact, we are told from Srimad Bhagavatam that everything we do, if it is not taking us closer to Krishna, if it is not increasing our attraction to Krishna, then it is Shrama Evahi Kevalam, right? Then that means it is just labor. So, when the attraction for Krishna consciousness is increasing, then all our activities will be in line in such a way that they bring us closer to Krishna. If we can analyze the life of a devotee, we can see, from a neophyte devotee to a more advanced devotee. Earlier, probably coming to the temple is just a ritual for some, something that we have been following because, our parents, our grandparents made us do it. For some, it starts like that. So it starts as a ritual. But then, as they start coming to the temple in the association of devotees, they start chanting, they start rendering some service, the taste increases. Then coming to the temple no longer remains a ritual. It is something, one person starts to look forward to. They're very eager to come to the temple. So here we see that how the attraction to Krishna increases. That means the taste for bhakti increases. And then what happens is that the person who initially may have been doing a lot of different activities, going out with friends, partying, or whatever, reading mundane literature, wasting time in materialistic activities, those activities which are not taking us closer to Krishna, they start reducing in a devotee's life, and all those activities which bring us closer to Krishna start increasing. So devotees start spending more time reading, chanting, associating with other devotees, coming to the temple, attending programs, and all other things which are not directly linked to Krishna consciousness, they start reducing. Then the work that we are doing also, the concentration, the focus then starts becoming that through this work, how can I please Lord Krishna? There are so many changes that come in the life of a devotee. And what do these changes reflect? That the devotee's taste in Krishna consciousness, their mood is now changing. So Srila Prabhupada, in the previous paragraph, he said that there are certain prescribed methods for employing our senses and mind in such a way that our dormant Krishna consciousness, our dormant tendency to love Krishna can be invoked. And then Prabhupada gives the example of a child, that a child with a little practice can begin to walk because the tendency to walk was already there in the child. That innate capacity was there. In the same way, for all living beings, the innate capacity for devotional service is already there. And then there are certain processes by which, when we start accepting them, executing them, that causes the dormant capacity to be invoked. And that process is actually called sadhana bhakti. So, in our mind, we can just roughly make a chart that bhakti, there are three different categories. There is sadhana bhakti, then there is Bhav Bhakti, and then there is Prema Bhakti. Now let's come to the first category, Sadhana Bhakti. What is Sadhana Bhakti? Sadhana Bhakti is nothing but the prescribed rules and regulations that we have to follow. There are some do's, there are some don'ts. We have to follow these things so that our dormant capacity for loving Krishna, for serving Krishna, can be revived. That is what Sadhana Bhakti is doing. Now, here a question comes that, how does bhakti start? Because no one can take to devotional service unless, one has some previous connection to it. And this question comes many times that how does bhakti begin? When did devotion first begin? So, devotion does not begin by any past activity. We cannot say that if I have so much, sorry, if I have so much balance of punya karma, from my previous life, then in this birth I am eligible to get bhakti. No. Bhakti does not start with punya, because what is punya? Punya is just the opposite of pap, right? Pap is a negative thing, punya is the positive thing. But we have to understand that pap and punya both are still at the material level. Anything material cannot take us to something spiritual, and that too something of such a high category as bhakti towards Lord Krishna. Once the cycle of bhakti has begun, when one renders devotional service, one's attraction to Krishna increases. As one's attraction to Krishna increases, then one renders more service. And in this way, this cycle is self-sustaining. But where does this cycle start? Where do we first start rendering service, or where do we first get some attraction for Krishna? That starts with the mercy of devotees. The devotees intervene in our lives and give us the impetus, the motivation to start rendering devotional service. And that's how our bhakti begins. So we have to understand that, that it's not like, by our own capacity, we can take to Krishna consciousness, we can come to Krishna consciousness. No, it is the mercy of some devotee who intervened in our life and gave us this bhakti beach. It says, na, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, Krishna Bhakti Lata Beach. So we need the mercy of Guru, we need the mercy of Krishna. That's the time when the bhakti starts. But on what basis does the Supreme Lord give His mercy. Yes, we need mercy of devotees, we need mercy of Guru and Krishna, but when do we get Krishna's mercy? Krishna's mercy is not dependent on our punya. Again, if we say that Krishna's mercy is dependent upon our punya, then that would mean that the punya, our pious karma, that becomes the cause of bhakti. But as I said, punya is not spiritual, punya is material. Punya and papa are two sides of the same coin. One is materially positive and the other is materially negative. But nothing material can lead to spiritual devotion. Yes, when papa is removed, then our bhakti becomes more determined and more steady, because if we have sinful desires, then those sinful desires keep taking us away from bhakti. But removal of papa and going to punya is not the beginning of bhakti. We cannot say that, okay, if I have stopped all my sinful activities and I have this sanchit, this great wealth of punya karma, so now I'm eligible to get bhakti. No. Punya papa is still at the material level, bhakti is at a spiritual level. So this comes only by mercy. And when do we get the Lord's mercy? The Lord's mercy follows the mercy of his devotees. And in this way, the Lord is bhakti sanjayate bhakti. It is bhakti sanjayate bhakti. That means bhakti is born out of bhakti. This is something we have to remember, and that's when we'll understand and value the presence of devotees in our lives. Because we have to understand that it is only by their mercy that my bhakti will sustain. So, by being in contact with some pure devotee, devotion is born in our heart. That's why we should really try that, our family members or someone very close to us who's still not on the path of bhakti, some way we should try to bring them in the contact of pure devotees. Something, whether it is attending some function or a Sunday program or some way. Bringing them in contact of pure devotees is important, because we don't know when that one moment will come where they get the mercy of the devotee and their bhakti starts. So this tells us how important it is how important it is where to associate with devotees and get their mercy, because that is what is going to really sustain our bhakti. It's very much required. That's why devotee association is valued so much. And that's why Srila Prabhupada has created so many wonderful temples and centers and inspired so many, because he wanted a place where people can come together, discuss about Krishna, inspire each other. So it is by the mercy of a devotee that we get Krishna's mercy, and it is through this mercy that our bhakti actually starts. And many times we can see that our attraction, at least in the initial stages, may not be to Krishna directly. Because for, countless number of lifetimes, we have forgotten about Krishna, and we have tried to forget about Krishna because we wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. So then what is it that pulls us? It is that attraction to a devotee many times. We get so inspired by being with a devotee, or the feeling of happiness we get when we are around them, that energy we feel, that we start getting attracted to a devotee, and then we start doing what they ask us to do. So like Srila Prabhupada, when his disciples, they didn't know about bhakti, but they were so enamored by him, they were so touched by Srila Prabhupada's selfless love, that they started worshipping Lord Krishna, because Srila Prabhupada was worshipping Lord Krishna. And this was because of Srila Prabhupada's selfless love and care. In the initial stages, Prabhupada, in his advanced age, he was 70 plus. He was cooking the prasadam for them. He was cleaning after all the devotees would come to the temple, and only later someone offered to help. And that's when other devotees got involved in the cooking and cleaning, etc. But initially, Prabhupada would do all these things by himself. It was his love that really inspired them, and they started getting attracted to Krishna consciousness because of their love for Srila Prabhupada. So, in the same way, when we get attracted to a devotee, that's a very good sign, because then that means we are on the right path. Okay. And then Srila Prabhupada is explaining that bhakti is not foreign to the living entities. It's not something that we've never, never experienced in our existence. It's not that. Bhakti is dormant in our heart. Like Prabhupada has given the example of a little child. Now, the little child has the capacity to walk, right? Because the human child starts walking with little practice, but the human child will not start flying. That is for the child of a bird because that they have that capacity. So the human child has the capacity to walk inside. It is already there, but it just needs to be brought out with a lot with practice. So the child is given that practice and the child starts walking. In the same way, the capacity to execute devotional service is there in the heart of all living entities. It is awakened when one performs devotional service. Okay, so it's not some foreign concept, that it's not something that, we've never experienced. The soul has experienced. It is just that we have forgotten about it. So when we start rendering bhakti, then that consciousness that we've forgotten, it's revived. Okay. The other important concept about sadhana bhakti is that sadhana bhakti is performed with the senses. Now, this can again raise a question that our senses are material, right? And the actions that we are doing are also mechanical many times, right? Because not every day do we may feel like, at least myself, that okay, let me sit and chant all my 16 rounds very nicely. Let me render devotional service very nicely. There may be days where we feel very motivated, but there may be days where we are doing it just in a mechanical way. So, if this is mechanical and our senses are material, then how can a mechanical practice performed with material senses bring about spiritual perfection? So it's a very logical question and very natural question that may come to our minds. But Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur explains that from this imperfection, perfection arises, just as a lotus flower arises in a dirty place. So we should not think that, oh, this process is not correct because my senses are material and I have no taste for doing this. Many people give this argument that I don't feel like chanting, so I'll chant when I feel like chanting. I'll come to the temple when I feel like coming. जब मेरा मन करेगा तब मैं आऊंगा, और जब मेरा मन लगेगा ना चैंटिंग में, that's when I'll start chanting. But this is not correct. Yes, our senses are imperfect. We may be doing things mechanically sometimes, but that is because right now we cannot perceive the presence of the Lord, and because our consciousness is still on the material level. But when we keep performing this practice, which is prescribed by acharyas, then this consciousness can be spiritualized because we are engaging our consciousness in a spiritual work, right? So we should never think that if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to do it. No, that is the whole point of Vedi sadhana bhakti, that we should have that sincerity. We should have this much determination that even though I don't feel like doing it, I have this faith that because my Guru Maharaj, because Srila Prabhupada has asked me to do it, if I follow this path sincerely, then this is going to take me to the path of perfection. So, with our senses, we should do all that is required. And when we perform sadhana bhakti with our senses, this mechanical engagement provides a path for the spiritual redirection of our thoughts. See, we may think that I'm just doing it mechanically. We should definitely try to correct that. The days when we are thinking that, oh, this is just it, I'm not getting any taste. I don't feel like chanting. I'm not feeling very happy in chanting. We have to understand that if we are running after happiness in this life, we will never get it. Because if we look around us, everyone is chasing happiness. But how many people who are really happy around us? It's so difficult because chasing after happiness is just, it's something that is not going to lead us anywhere. But if we start following our duties, then happiness will just come as a byproduct. See, in the earlier times, people were not thinking about their happiness. oriented, whether it is the parents or the children or society in general, the great kings that we have had. They were not thinking about their happiness. They were thinking, what is my duty? What is important for me to do in my life? And when we follow that path, happiness comes as a byproduct. So when we are on the path of bhakti, we should not check our we should not check our progress by thinking, how happy am I feeling today in chanting, and I'll not chant if I'm not feeling happy. No, we have to keep that aside. Our happiness is secondary, our duty is primary. We have made a promise to Srila Prabhupada that we are going to execute this bhakti because we are so indebted to Srila Prabhupada. He is our savior. So we have this promise to Srila Prabhupada. This is now our duty. So when every morning we are determined to perform all our practices in a very dutiful, in a very committed manner, we'll see that we will definitely feel happy. And when we are doing all these different practices, then our senses, our mind, they are getting a spiritual redirection. See, if we are, in the day we are thinking about seva, okay, at this time I have to offer bhoga. What should I cook for the Lord today? How much is my reading done? What do I have to read today? How many rounds are remaining? Or, some like, for example, now Narsimha Chaturdashi is coming. What sevas will I render on that day? Now, what is this? I am using my mechanical senses, I'm using my physical senses, but my thoughts are getting a spiritual redirection. So in this time that I could have thought of something material and just created more karma, done something, which would just entangle me more. By having this Vedi Bhakti path, at least for this time, my thoughts got a very positive spiritual redirection. So this means that, we are by default at the material level of consciousness. But when we have some spiritual interaction, our consciousness gets a spiritual redirection. And this is what we have to keep doing constantly. Our mind wanders to materialistic things, we have to keep bringing it back. Like, they say that in aviation industry, the pilots who are flying the plane, uh, there is a particular path that every flight should follow. So from destination, from a point A or to destination, there is a particular flight path that is prescribed for every flight. But the flight keeps moving away from this path. It never, there is a very, big amount of time where the flight actually moves out of this path. But then that is the struggle. The pilots keep bringing it back to the flight path. It wavers, they bring it back. It wavers again they bring it back. So it reaches the destination correctly. In the same way, our mind will also keep wandering, you know, because the materialistic thoughts will keep taking it away. But we have to keep bringing it back, keep bringing it back. And this becomes easy when we have a lot of spiritual things to do. And if we leave our mind idle, then I think we all have experienced that what a demon it becomes, right? It really becomes a devil. So, in the association of devotees, when we have lots of things to do, then the scope of the mind running away is really reduced. So, that means that our consciousness keeps getting a spiritual redirection. For example, how all of you are attending these classes so sincerely. So, there is a pattern to the day, right? Now I have to do this. Now let me quickly complete this work because I have the class coming up. Oh, I have the evening class coming up. Now let me quickly finish all my cooking. Let me do all my sevas. And all this preparation is making our consciousness very, very clean because it is all spiritually motivated, right? And all these activities that we are doing, all these spiritual activities that we are doing, they are removing the material layer. That our soul is pure, but then this material layer is covering us, and that is keeping us away from the spiritual realm. So when this layer is removed, the soul naturally has an attraction towards Krishna. So then that natural attraction awakens. So all this that we are doing is for that revival. So bhakti is not a development, bhakti is a revival. So His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu uses this line that bhakti is not a development, it is a revival. So when we revive our bhakti, the sensory engagement provides a path for it, right? So now we understand that bhakti is there in our heart. We need to revive it. How do we revive it? It is this, this sadhana, these processes that are given that are going to engage our senses, and then this sensory engagement is going to provide this path for revival. That's why we are not. It's not recommended that we just sit and meditate, and that's how we'll get Krishna. Bhakti is very action oriented, right? There's so many things that Prabhupada has given us to do, starting from the morning program till the end of the day. There are so many things, and that is very much required because our senses have to be positively engaged. But the catch here is that whenever we are doing all these processes, like we have discussed earlier, that our senses are material, this process sometimes becomes mechanical. So, the very important thing that we have to keep in mind is that while doing all these processes, we should have a longing for Krishna. We should not do it just for the heck of it, or for some other motivation, other motive. Like, for example, there's some bhajan singers who sing commercially. Now they are singing Krishna's name. Some of them may be singing the Mahamantra also. But then their motivation is not to get bhakti. Their motivation is to make money, to have more followers, become very famous. So for them, it won't have that effect. If the goal is not spiritual, then that process will not revive our attraction to Krishna because we're not longing for Krishna. Yes, they will get some spiritual credit, but it may take them many, many lifetimes to come to Krishna Bhakti. That's why, even though we may feel that right now I don't really feel very motivated, but we should have that longing for Krishna, that Krishna, I want to come back to you. That desire should be there. So our chanting, we have to take it very, very seriously. We have to focus. We have to focus on developing that longing for Krishna. That longing that I, Krishna, I want to return to you. And when we are in the association of devotees, seeing their longing for Krishna, our longing also increases. So that's why we have to really, when we are in the association of devotees, it's a great benediction. And we should really keep our hearts open. There we should not go and have all these hundreds of thoughts in our head and, this judging mentality, this fault finding mentality. If we enter the association of devotees with this kind of mentality, then we're just wasting such a precious opportunity. There, we should just be, with an open heart and just accepting everything that we are getting because it is, bhakti is like, it's infectious. When we see someone dancing very beautifully in kirtan, we also feel like it. Someone singing very beautiful kirtan, we also want to learn. So in this way, the longing of devotees, we can also get inspiration from that and get that longing. But see, this is something that we need to consciously work on. So if I'm just chanting in a very mechanical way without thinking about Krishna at all, at least, not even having that motivation that I want to become Krishna conscious, then, this process is going to take a very, very long time. Later in the purport, Prabhupada says that as a man's mental disease is cured by the directions of a psychiatrist, so this sadhana bhakti cures the conditioned soul of his madness under the spell of Maya, material illusion. So Prabhupada is comparing this as a disease. It's a material disease. It's a bhavarog. We are all sick, in this material world. We are all mad. And what is that madness? The madness is that we are engaging in activities for sense gratification and we are expecting that this is going to satisfy us. This madness, this forgetfulness of Krishna, is compared to amnesia. Amnesia is a medical condition when a person forgets things, right? It's like losing our memory. Now we can understand that losing our memory is very, very dangerous. We may have seen this in movies. Someone gets hurt and then their memory just goes away. It's a very dangerous thing. But more dangerous than losing our memory is losing the memory that we have lost our memory. Okay, I'll just repeat it because His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu says that. More dangerous than losing our memory is losing the memory that we have lost our memory. that means that we don't even understand that we have forgotten. So I have lost my memory. Now I don't even remember that I have lost my memory. So I think that in whatever state I am, this is only my natural condition. So our illusion is twofold. We have not just forgotten Krishna, we have not just forgotten our true identity as a Das of Krishna, but we have also forgotten our forgetfulness. And we have taken this false identity as the real thing, that I am a man, I'm a woman, I belong to this country, I belong to this caste, I belong to this particular section of society. So the soul, the soul in the material world has forgotten Krishna and also forgotten that the soul has forgotten Krishna. So we start thinking that, okay, this is only a natural state, this body is me, and we start acting, start doing everything with that consciousness. So it's a very, very dangerous thing. But then in movies, we must have also seen that when someone is suffering from amnesia, then what is it that brings the memory back? They need some sort of a stimulation, right? Something that reminds them of the past. So whether it is, seeing some familiar place from the past or some familiar person, or sometimes they hear something which takes them back, but some stimulation is required. And that's what bhakti centers on. This stimulation, it is our sadhana because it gives us reminder of what life with Krishna was like, right? So we can take it like, this is how I was in my natural state, serving Krishna, getting all that joy. Now I have forgotten that. I've also forgotten that I have forgotten. But then when bhakti comes in our life, the devotee, they're like the doctors. They give us that stimulation. First of all, they tell us that you are not this body, you are a soul. They tell us that you have forgotten that you have forgotten. Then they tell us that how will you start feeling like your true self. That is through the path of bhakti. And Srila Prabhupada says that it is the duty of the Acharya, the spiritual master, to find the ways and means for his disciple to fix his mind on Krishna. And that is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. So all these things that we are doing, these are to give us reminders of, how life is so beautiful with Krishna. And then, because that memory is there somewhere hidden in the mind, so it comes back. In the same way, this love for Krishna, it is hidden in the heart. When this bhakti process is done with sincerity, with that longing to get to Krishna, then that consciousness is revived. So the whole purpose of everything that we do in bhakti is to think of Krishna, right? In the spiritual world, everyone is fully conscious of Krishna. That is our natural state. Now we forget Krishna. At times we remember Krishna, again we forget Krishna. But through bhakti, everything that we are doing, we are trying to make our life more and more Krishna centered so that we are constantly thinking of Krishna. And this is the stimulus that is going to take us back to our original healthy state of being. So the purpose of everything, all the prescribed methods, Shravanam, Kirtanam, everything is like the child practicing to start walking. The capacity to walk is there in the child. Similarly, the capacity to serve Krishna is there in the heart of every living entity. The child does some practice, which helps the child to start walking again. The soul, the living entity, performs sadhana bhakti through this, that the dormant condition of loving Krishna is revived. Okay. So that's actually the first stage of bhakti. And we have to understand that all these processes that are prescribed, why is it so important? When we keep reminding ourselves that I am not in a healthy state, Prabhupada is using the word madness. It is very, very true. What are the symptoms of a person who's lost their mental ability totally? It's because they start thinking that they are something else, right? They've forgotten who they are. And that's what's happened to us. So all these processes of sadhana bhakti, performing deity worship, chanting, attending classes, all these are there to cure us of our madness. And in the purport, Prabhupada quotes Narad Muni that he mentions this in Sadhana Bhakti Srimad Bhagavatam. And he says to Maharaj Yudhishthir that, my dear king, one has to fix his mind on Krishna by any means. That is called Krishna consciousness. So everything that we are doing in ISKCON is to fix our mind on Krishna. And Prabhupada is saying that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us an authorized program for this purpose. So we don't have to think, okay, I'm supposed to think of Krishna. Now I'll just sit in one place and I'll meditate on Krishna. That is not our process. What is our process? Our process is centered around chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And Prabhupada is saying that this chanting is so powerful that it immediately attaches one to Krishna. So, this bhakti is not a superimposition on the soul. It is just to bring us back to our healthy condition where we think of Krishna naturally and lovingly. So, through the path of chanting, through the path of hearing, and all these other 9 processes that I mentioned, we are constantly trying to think of Krishna. And then in this paragraph, Prabhupada is explaining that sadhana bhakti can again be classified into 2 parts. One is the Vedi sadhana bhakti and the other is the Raganuga bhakti. Now, Raganuga bhakti, sometimes it is misunderstood that Raganuga bhakti is pure devotional service. No, pure devotional service is in the Bhav and Prema stages. Raganuga bhakti is still sadhana bhakti, devotional service in practice. But the difference is that in the Vedi bhakti, there is a certain sense of duty that okay, I have to do this. The impetus is vidhi, that I have been given this vidhi, the scriptural rules and regulations. This is what I have been told to do, and so I am going to do this. So that is Vedhi sadhana bhakti. In Raga Nuga bhakti, it is spontaneous, it's natural. So when one performs Vedhi sadhana bhakti and it matures, then one reaches a stage where you're not forced to do it anymore. You just want to do it. So in the initial stages, getting up for Mangal Arati, doing deity worship, chanting may seem like an imposition, may seem like something that we just have to do. But in the Raganuga Bhakti stage, there is so much attachment to Krishna that the devotee naturally wants to decorate the deity, uh, make different kind of offerings, dresses, and all that. Makes different plans because now it comes naturally. It comes, in a spontaneous manner. So it's not something that one has to, artificially do. It becomes very, very natural. Okay, but that is, we shouldn't think that Vedi sadhana bhakti is something which is of a lower category. We should not minimize it. That is also something very important because at this stage there is still submission. Okay, yeah, I may not really feel like doing it, but I'm submitted to my Gurudev, to Srila Prabhupada, so I will still do it. Now, that submission is also a sign of devotion. So, from here only, we move forward. So, that potential of pure devotional service is there at this stage also. In the Raganuga stage, it becomes very spontaneous. There is attraction to Krishna, and so we are rendering this. And again, here also the potential for pure devotional service is much more. Okay, so just because Vedi sadhana bhakti means that there is some rules and regulations that we have to follow, then that doesn't mean that Vedi sadhana bhakti is of a lower category. It is still very, very important because that is what is going to take us to the higher stages. Okay. Okay, now let's read forward. Yeah. So this paragraph we read where Shukadev Goswami was instructing Maharaj Parikshit as to his course of action. So, as you know, Maharaj Parikshit had 7 days to live, and Shukdev Goswami was telling him about the importance of the process of hearing and chanting. And he says that Prabhupada is saying that if one can chant and hear Hare Krishna and always remember Lord Krishna, then he's sure to become fearless of death, which may come at any moment. So, Parikshit Maharaj was at a juncture in his life where he knew he had only 7 days. So that he knew he had 7 days, we don't know for ourselves. But what is it that can make us fearless at the time of death? If we take to the process of chanting Hare Krishna and remembering Krishna all the time, then that actually makes us fearless. Okay. Okay. Now let's read this paragraph in the statements of Shukdev Goswami.
Hare Krishna.
Kusum
Shall I,
Lata
Mataji?
Mataji,
Sorry.
Kusum Lata Mataji had raised her hand, so she can read one paragraph and then you can read one paragraph. Okay.
Okay,
Hare Krishna
Mataji.
Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
In the statements of Sukadev Goswami, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. Therefore, Sukadev recommends that one should always hear about Krishna. He does not recommend that one hear and chant about the demigods. The Mayavadis says that one may chant any name, either that of Krishna or those of the demigods, and the result will be the same. But actually, this is not a fact. According to the authorized version of Srimad Bhagavatam, one has to hear and chant about Lord Vishnu, Krishna only. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Yes, Rekha Mataji, you can read the next paragraph.
Yes, Mataji, thank you. Hare Krishna. The marked part I have to read, right? No, okay. So Sukadeva Goswami has recommended to Parikshit Maharaj that in order to be fearless of death, one has to hear and chant and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna by all means. He also mentions that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Sarvatma. Sarvatma means the super soul of everyone. Krishna is also mentioned as Ishvara, the supreme controller who is situated in everyone's heart. Therefore, if some way or the other we become attached to Krishna, he will make us free from all danger. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that anyone who becomes a devotee of the Lord is never vanquished. Others, however, are always vanquished. Vanquished means that after getting this human form of life, a person does not come out of the entanglement of birth and death and thus misses his golden opportunity. Such a person Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. Thank you. So such a person does not know where he is being thrown by the laws of nature. Okay, so the paragraphs that we read now, Shukadev Goswami, in the statements of Shukadev Goswami, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. And so Prabhupada is explaining that Shukadev Goswami has recommended that we should hear about Krishna. He is not recommending that we hear and chant about the demigods. That is not going to give us the same result. Like the impersonalists say that everyone is same, so you can just you can follow any path, you'll still get the same destination. But that's not right. According to the authorized version of Srimad Bhagavatam, one has to hear and chant about Lord Krishna only. Okay, so we have to understand that demigod worship is not going to take us to the ultimate destination. That is only when we are worshipping Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is Sarvatma. That means he is the super soul of everyone. And he is Ishvara, the supreme controller. Now, all these things that we are doing, the sadhana bhakti, the Vedi sadhana bhakti, Raganuga bhakti, that is to, revive our dormant Krishna consciousness and always keep us in remembrance of Krishna. And that is going to make us fearless. That is going to make us, that is going to give us the ability to get out of the clutches of material energy. Otherwise, if we are not doing this, Prabhupada is saying, the others are always vanquished. Vanquished means that once we get this human form of life, if we are not using this to get out of the entanglement of birth and death, then we are missing this golden opportunity. So, like in Bhagavad Gita, we are learning in 2.40 also, right? That any advancement we have on the path of bhakti, it is never lost, and we are saved from the most dangerous type of fear. Now, what is that most dangerous type of fear? The fear that once having gotten this human form of life, we again go back to the lower species. So, if we are not using this human form for advancing our Krishna consciousness, then we are really wasting this golden opportunity that we got. And then such a person does not know where he is being thrown by the laws of nature. So now that we have been given this knowledge by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, then we should make the utmost use of this opportunity and try that this process of very sadhana bhakti that we are trying to follow, it should be done with a longing for Krishna. Every day when we are starting our chanting or we are starting our different, sadhana, it should always be with this motivation that Krishna, I want to come back to you. Okay, so then, and we have to keep reminding ourselves again and again. It becomes mechanical. Then we have to bring ourselves back to the concentration that Krishna, I want to please you. This is for pleasing you. So, in this way, when we are following this process of bhakti, it's going to take us closer to Krishna. Okay, so we'll stop here. If there are any questions, any comments, if you would like to add something. Okay. Yeah. So these are very, very important, very important philosophical and practical points that Srila Prabhupada is teaching us. So please do be regular to the classes. Okay. So thank you all so much. Thank you for joining. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Guru Maharaj ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami ki jai, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much for joining. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji.